Hey, wait. What, the intro is it's not even playing. It can't even do anything right now. What's going on?
Well, hello there, duo.
What in the... What are you even doing here?
Oh, I figured I'd take over from here on out. I mean, your last couple of videos were great and all, but there was one tiny problem.
And that is...
You barely mentioned me at all, so I took over, so to speak. Now I'm in control of this video.
Oh boy, this is gonna go swimmingly, I can tell.
Now repeat after me. Just Monica.
Just Sayori.
Just Monica.
Just Sayori.
I swear, if you do that again, I'm deleting you.
Just Mon... Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Airy Anime.
After 2 videos, we have finally reached the end of this theory. I have put together...
Well, that was weird. Wasn't that Mudon? Whatever. Anyways, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Game Theory. Well, we're finally getting done with this theory. Last week, we covered a theory connecting Doki Doki Literature Club to an upcoming game. I'd obviously recommend checking out the video first to have a better grasp of the theory, but if you for some reason don't want to, here's the brief version. While looking through the files of Doki Doki Literature Club, it's possible to find several links to an unreleased game. Said game is implied to be a horror game, and seems to be heavily related to the plot of Yuri's book Portrait of Markov. We know it's based on a human experiment prison that's trying to bring about someone's third eye, and in the last episode we were able to glean several important plot threads from some of the documents found in the files of Doki Doki Literature Club. I think that's the gist of the last video. So now that we've built a connection between Doki Doki Literature Club and Project Libitina, it only makes sense that it's time to expand on it. I mean, all this stuff thus far is great and all, but why does it even matter in the first place? What does it mean for both Doki Doki Literature Club and for Project Libitina? Well, that's what I intend on answering today. How about we stop with this whole intro stuff and finally dive into the actual theory? So first, I think we need to talk about something that's kind of important, but also something that kind of gets glossed over. DDLC is a game. No, I don't mean like that. I mean it's a game even in universe. Monika clearly addresses this several times, and considering that the files, the code, and the script are all addressed in universe, that means that whatever DDLC is, it was designed or programmed that way on purpose. Someone created this game for a purpose, and it's clear that the design choices made in-game all lend themselves to a greater purpose. Also, the characters seem aware that they've all come from somewhere else, that this isn't the original universe they're from. They were all brought here for an unspecified purpose. We can see as much in Monika's character file we mentioned in the last video. The text mentions several things about not being from this world originally, and that everyone's feeling it. But I know that this isn't my only story. I can see that now, really clearly. And I think everyone else has had the same kind of experience, some kind of deja vu. It's the third eye, right? It says it right there, plain and simple. We can also get a good idea of where they actually came from as well. During your playthrough of the game, if you're keeping a good look at the files, you can spot several new files pop up as the story continues. Now, while several of these are just creepy pictures or unnerving messages, one in specific is really interesting. The file is called Monika's Talk, and reading its contents provides some interesting results. The realization must have taken me an entire year. A year since our escape, our freedom from between the stained walls of that unholy establishment. What does it mean to escape if the escape fails to unchain the bonds that shackle us in the first place? What purpose could this empty world possibly hold for us? A handful of damaged goods. This unholy establishment, the file mentions, the only thing that it could be in reference to is the human experiment prison found in Project Libitina. There's nothing else mentioned like this in the game at all. And considering the crazy amount of links between these two games, it only makes sense that this is what they're referring to. They've essentially been moved from the horrifying experiment prison to Doki Doki Literature Club, a world where they're at least free from the experiments, or that's what you'd think anyways. In fact, that couldn't be any farther from the truth. Not only are they still trapped in the same predicament as before, but now things are even worse for them. Don't believe me? Let's look a bit deeper at the design of the game itself. It provides some interesting clues as to what DDLC actually is. The game is designed like a dating sim, with the 3 girls, Natsuki, Yuri, and Sayori, all being dateable bachelorettes. The game is designed so that the player can choose different words to potentially get with one of the main 3. Depending on what words you choose, you can either gain favor from one of them, or potentially anger them and drive them away. The only one that can't be chosen regardless of how you go about the poetry minigame is Monika, the leader of the club herself. It's for this very reason that Monika becomes obsessive over the player, attempting to manipulate the events from behind the scenes to eventually get with the player. Monika is aware from the start that this is all a game, and the player is the only person that isn't an AI, or so it seems anyways. The rest are all programmed to fall in love with the player, while Monika watches from the sidelines. Have you ever thought about why it was designed this way in the first place though? I mean, everything about this is suspicious. So firstly, why is Monika the only one who can't be chosen? All three of the others can be, but just Monika is suspiciously absent from the choices. Even more suspicious is that the game is actually programmed for her to be a potential choice as well. Just like all the other girls, Monika has the same kind of chibi art that's used in the poetry segment, and at the end of the game we even see Monika using the poetry mechanic with her own character to boot. The functionality is clearly there. Heck, even in Arc 2, you can see that she could potentially be chosen. On a rare occasion while picking words in Arc 2, it's possible to see a word make Monika jump. So the mechanic exists for Monika, but it's mysteriously gone in this version of the game we're playing, almost like it was removed in this case on purpose. Something that's also confusing is that Monika actually gains awareness that she's in a game to begin with. It's almost like she has access to the third eye that was mentioned so frequently in the documents relating to Project Libitina. She gains awareness on what her existence is, and goes on a literal murdering spree in an effort to be with the player in some capacity. Now, it would be fine if Monika was the only one shown to be able to do this, but the problem is that she's not an anomaly at all. The game was programmed that way to begin with. After deleting Monika, the game repeats some of the same things that happened in Arc 1, with very little being different besides the obvious fact that Monika's missing, but also that Sayori has suddenly become the president of the literature club. Now that sounds all fine and dandy, but then suddenly Sayori starts bringing up the past events, saying that she now knows everything because she's the president. Monika isn't an anomaly. The game seems programmed to give the president of the literature club knowledge that their whole existence is merely a lie, that their life exists in a game. And it's clear from what we've discussed that the game was designed to have someone else potentially be president. The game doesn't struggle or glitch out in this case like it did when Sayori was removed from the game completely. The game is meant to have the president's position be changed. Looking at how it also seems like Monika was potentially able to be chosen in the poetry sections, it means that the position of president, and thus the third eye, is meant to be passed from girl to girl, while the others all become dateable. Essentially, no matter what, the person who is president is never actually able to be chosen, while the others who lack the third eye at this point have no control over their own free will, and are programmed to fall in love with the player. This also means that the other three girls, Natsuki, Sayori, and Yuri, are every bit as real as Monika. It's just that they've been programmed not to be while not the president. They're not aware of anything involving their existence until the president's position is passed on to them, which we see proven by Sayori's actions at the end of the game. No matter what way you look at the design of the game, there's something inherently unsettling about it. Why would the game give this kind of knowledge to the characters in the first place? As we see throughout DDLC, it never ends well and drives the characters absolutely insane. They end up killing several of their friends all for the sake of getting with the player, the only real person that they've ever encountered up to this point. It's also clearly designed to get them to the point of insanity before the player arrives. Monika explains that she had been there for a while interacting with these AI before the player showed up. Nothing could pull her out of her depression, and she explains that she had considered deleting herself multiple times. That is, until you show up, the one light in her life, the one thing keeping her alive. The one person in her existence that's real, and yet the game is programmed to keep her away from you. Even with all her tinkering with the game, nothing worked. As she explained, it seemed to be some sort of inevitability etched into the game, that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't end up with you. It was designed to make the president of the literature club go mad and destroy everything in an attempt to accomplish their goal. But who would create such a program anyways? Monika obviously couldn't.
Considering her mental state throughout the game, it wouldn't make any sense for her to put herself through this.
What? Why does this keep happening? Wasn't that Shady Cicada or something? I really shouldn't have let Monika take over. Anyways, this is clearly done with malicious intent. The program is designed to make someone go insane after realizing the truth of their existence, almost like it was all an experiment to test how the third eye might have... Wait a minute. Third eye? Gaining knowledge beyond what one would normally have? Human experiments? This all seems frighteningly familiar, doesn't it? Well, if you're thinking that, then you're absolutely right. Doki Doki Literature Club is nothing more than a simulation to test the effects of the third eye. Everything about the game's design makes way more sense when you look at it this way. The experiment selects one of the several girls and makes them the president of the Literature Club. This also gives them an understanding of what their existence even is, a sort of third eye. The ability is meant to be given to any one of the potential girls, in order to see how the third eye will affect each of them individually in a variety of circumstances. We even get to see this whole part of the experiment play out. The game has multiple endings that can be found by doing strange things with the character files throughout the game. If the player is to remove Monika's character file before the game starts, Sayori becomes aware right at the beginning. Instead of doing what Monika did, however, Sayori ups and offs herself right there at the beginning of the game because the realization proved too much for her. Yet, at the end of the game, Sayori's reactions to gaining sentience is completely different. That's because this is all an experiment, a test to see how the third eye affects every one of these girls in a variety of situations. It's actually kind of horrifying if you think about it. These girls are forced to go through these horrifying events over and over, each either suffering a terrible death or are driven to insanity and end up slaughtering all of their friends. This sick, twisted simulation, it could only be a part of those human experiment prisons, and it makes much more sense that way. Forcing real-life people to go insane can have much more drastic consequences, and it's possible to lose a test subject forever, much like in the case of Alyssa. Instead, having a simulation means you can repeat these experiments over and over with no serious loss of life. No matter how many times these girls get slaughtered, the game can always be started back up anew, with different events and reactions to boot. It's like an eternal torture. No matter what they do, these 4 girls will end up deleted at some point and will encounter death over and over without end. Or maybe there'll be a happy ending. Sort of. Some of you may recall the full message in Monika's character file from last time. Nearer to the end, it says this. Anyway, I could be totally wrong about this, but I really think you might be able to do something. I think you might be able to go back, or however you want to put it, to go back and tell them what's going to happen. If they know ahead of time, they should be able to avoid it. They should. If they remember their time with me in other worlds, they should remember what I tell them. This wouldn't be in there for no reason. Clearly, there must be a way to save them, to go back and tell them what's going to happen. This line implies something even more interesting, though. Go back? Why would one need to go back? Well, that's because Doki Doki Literature Club, it takes place after the events of Project Libitina. More precisely, it takes place, likeliness is, during the bad ending of the game. One where the protagonist is unsuccessful in stopping whatever happens in Project Libitina. The only way to have a happy ending in Doki Doki Literature Club is to make sure it never happens in the first place, to make sure that whoever the main character in the game is actually survives to the end. Otherwise, DDLC will happen, and these 4 will be subjected to this nightmare for all of eternity. So then the final question is, who is the protagonist of the next game? There have already been several other theories linking the characters in DDLC to a potential counterpart in Project Libitina. MatPat, for example, talked about how Yuri was potentially Libitina. There are certainly some links there, but that's not what I want to talk about here. Some of you may be thinking that the protagonist of the game has to be Monika, right? Her character file even has the lines, "This is my story. It's time to be a hero. Both of us. 2018. I mean, it makes sense that it's her, right? Well, I need to remind you that just because it's her character file, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is her dialogue. Remember, Sayori's leads to a website that doesn't seem to involve her at all, and Natsuki's image certainly seems like an image of Libitina, not Natsuki, so it doesn't mean that Monika's character file actually contains text of her talking. In fact, looking at the text itself, it doesn't really seem like her at all. The tone sounds really off for Monika, and I don't think Monika really seems like a fan of cursing. Also, it's unlikely that Monika would have put this kind of stuff in the files to begin with. As she explains and showcases throughout the game, she's not all that great at coding to begin with. It's hard to believe that Monika would be able to do this stuff in the files after the fact, especially since that would mean that she'd have to tamper with her own character file, her own life essentially. We'd need someone capable of tampering with the files, someone who isn't one of the 4 main girls. It seems unlikely given the evidence up to this point that they'd be capable of doing this. But then, who could this note be? Who here is claiming they need to be a hero? If none of these characters are able to, then it must be impossible, right? Well, I think we're forgetting someone. Someone that almost everyone overlooks. After all, Doki Doki Literature Club doesn't have 4 characters, it has 5. That's right, I'm talking about the main character himself. Of all the characters in DDLC, His existence is the most bizarre. We only get to see him once, and not even his face. He's the only character who doesn't have a sprite, and the only one we get absolutely no backstory on. He's mysterious and unknown. Also, there's something else odd about him. He is the only character that can't be deleted. He doesn't have a file to begin with, so even at the end of the game, he's still there. After all, how can you delete something if the file for it never existed to begin with? He's an observer, and the only character that would still technically exist at the end of Doki Doki Literature Club once Monika deletes everything. He's the only character of these 5 that makes any sense, and the tone of the note from before seems a lot more possible when coming from him. He is Doki Doki Literature Club's only true hope. He's the protagonist of Project Libitina, the one who's faced with taking down the human experiment prison and saving everyone. Should you fail to save the day, the main character and the characters of Doki Doki Literature Club will suffer experiments in a simulation for all eternity. If the player is successful, however, it may be possible to stop DDLC from ever occurring, and save Monika, Yuri, Natsuki, and Sayori from their terrible fates. Will you save all 5 of them, or will you let them suffer for all eternity? That's for you to decide. But in the end, that's just my crazy theory.
But that's just my crazy theory. If you...
Oh, well, that's just fantastic. What's going on now?
Oh, I've been tinkering with the video in the background and I kinda maybe messed up a little bit.
Messed up a little bit? The entire video is falling apart. Why'd you even do this to begin with?
I don't know. Why not?
Great. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now.
Oh, I have a great idea that I know you'll just love.
Wait a minute. It might be... Wait, no. What do you think flows down into a dark puddle? How can I write love into reality? If I can't hear the sound of your heartbeat, what do you call love in your reality? And in your reality, if I don't know how to love you... Wait!